Well, hello, my lovelies. It's Murky Meg here. Well, hello. It is Monday, the 15th of January, and I hope that you're all well. I had an extended long breakaway. I just wanted to spend some time with Christmas, New Year, and spend a little time, just a bit of rest and recuperation, and a little bit of time away. And yeah, back and ready to go. It was also really quite quiet over the Christmas period with regards to Harry and Meghan, and not many massive stories were breaking, only tiny little tidbits were coming out. But suffice to say, that has all changed now, because it seems they're in a little bit of hot bother with regards to the late Queen. Now, we all remember when it was announced that their second child, however she came into this world, was going to be called Lilibet. And as you'll remember, there was a massive outcry about it, and rightfully so, because this was the late Queen Elizabeth's pet name. It was her nickname from her nearest and dearest. Now, Lilibet was her childhood nickname, and short for Elizabeth, and the only family members allegedly to have called her by that moniker were her parents, the Queen Mother and King George VI, and her late husband, Prince Philip. The nickname is said to have come about when a young Queen Elizabeth, then Princess Elizabeth, couldn't pronounce her name, so she called herself Lilibet instead. Her parents and her grandparents then soon started to call her by this sweet nickname. And the late Queen's father, King George VI, was once quoted by saying, "Lilibet is my pride, Margaret is my joy." That is referring to Princess Margaret, of course, the late Queen's sister. So it came as quite a shock to people when Harry and Meghan announced that they were going to name their daughter Lilibet. At the time, apparently, Harry and Meghan had sought the Queen's permission to call their daughter Lilibet, but this is where the waters get a little muddled. It was reported in July 2021 that Harry phoned the late Queen up and announced, "We want to call our daughter after you, Granny." And she said, "Oh, how charming, thank you," thinking that they meant Elizabeth. Of course they didn't, they meant Lilibet. But Harry and Meghan still say they sought permission. But released yesterday evening, a new bombshell article says that the Queen was infuriated by Harry and Meghan's claim that she had given her blessing to their daughter being named Lilibet, apparently according to a new book. Now, this is a book by Robert Hardman, and it is called Charles III, New King, New Court, The Inside Story. Now, this book claims that one member of her staff says that the monarch was as angry as I'd ever seen her after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex publicly stated they would not have used her private family nickname if she had not been supportive. Now, if you cast your mind back to when this was actually announced, there was a bit of a hoo-ha on the BBC because the BBC had claimed that she was not asked for permission, and Harry and Meghan instructed their lawyers, Shillings, who are known to be aggressive, to say that this was false and defamatory and should not be repeated. And the book claims that Harry and Meghan sought confirmation from Buckingham Palace to back up their claim that they had requested from Queen Elizabeth that they name their child after her, but no confirmation or agreement or clarification ever came from Buckingham Palace as to whether or not they sought permission to use the name Lilibet and not Elizabeth. And the book claims that when Harry and Meghan decided to call their daughter Lilibet, it actually raised eyebrows within the royal family themselves. Now, like I said a few moments ago, at the time the BBC reported that it had been told by a palace source that the Queen was not asked by Harry and Meghan as to whether or not they could use the nickname. One source told the media, including the Mail, that while the Queen was called by her grandson and his wife, i.e. Harry and Meghan, she felt she wasn't in a position to say no. But Harry and Meghan's spokesperson insisted the couple would not have used the name had the Queen not been supportive. Now, could it be exactly how it went down. We'd like to call our child after you. Yes, that would be lovely. Not actually indicating which name they would be using. Would you associate somebody calling, if somebody said to you, I'm going to call my daughter after you or son after you, and you'd think, oh, lovely, that would be your actual name, not your nickname. Would you automatically assume that it was going to be your actual name and not your nickname? Otherwise, they would specify. Actually, we're not going to call her Elizabeth, we're going to call her Lilibet, the most privatest of private nicknames or sweet monikers. Just as a sidebar, I'd like to tell you a little tidbit into my weird and fragile mind. For years and years and years, I have been saying that word, moniker, completely wrong. Now, I don't know whether it's my dyslexia or whether it's just me, but for years I called it a monkeyer. I thought I was saying it right. Monkeyer, monkeyer, monkeyer. It wasn't until about 5 years ago when I had a conversation with my husband and I used the word monkeyer. He looked at me like I'd gone completely mad and he's like, what did you say? And I said, monkeyer. And he went, it's moniker. I was like, but it's monkeyer. No, it's moniker. So I now know it's moniker, but whenever I say the word, in my head, I always repeat, monkeyer, monkeyer, monkeyer. Don't say monkeyer. Is there any word that you ever say incorrectly or you've been saying incorrectly your whole life, only to realise you've been saying it wrong? Anyway, I digress. Going back to what I was originally talking about, the Sussex's spokesperson insisted that the couple would not have used the nickname had the Queen not been supportive. But as I've said, was there a mix-up? Did the Queen think that they meant Elizabeth when in fact they meant Lilibet? Because it's not like these two to be deceptive, is it? No. They dug their heels in even further, and at the time, a spokesperson said the Duke spoke with his family in advance with the announcement, and in fact, his grandmother was the first family member he called. It says that during that conversation, he shared their hope of naming their daughter Lilibet in her honour. Had she not been supportive, they would not have used the name. Strongly worded legal letters were then sent out. But isn't it funny that this particular conversation wasn't actually included in Harry's memoir Spare? It's interesting that, isn't it? I wonder why. So apparently, the late Queen Elizabeth II had been as angry as I'd ever seen her. And when the Sussexes sought validation from the palace, it was, of course, recollections may vary once again because the palace stayed stum. The only thing that was reported was that they received strongly worded legal letters not to repeat that the Queen hadn't given her permission. But of course, you've got to remember at this point, the Queen, although we didn't know it at the time, was incredibly poorly. It's only now that in hindsight that we can look back and think, my lord, what was happening? She was also grieving for her late husband who had only passed away 2 months prior. But we can remember that the legal threats were there that if anybody repeated the claim that the Queen was not asked for her blessing, they would take legal action. Now, those legal actions didn't really come about and nothing ever happened to them. It's going to be interesting to see now with this author saying what he said and then the media reprinting what the author have said in articles, whether or not more threats of legal action will come about. Because if they can get uppity with regards to the press releasing information that the Queen wasn't asked at the time, surely those legal letters will start to pop up again. That's going to be an interesting concept, isn't it? Because they are very, very Sue happy, aren't they? Both of them, Harry especially, but Meghan also legally trigger happy. Will they now start, again, legal action or slapdown requests because it's popped up again that the Queen was not informed? But more so to the fact, not only was she not informed, but she was angry about confirmation that she was informed, when in fact, according to this book, not only was she not informed, she was misled, and then she was angry at the fact that confirmation from the Sussexes said, well, actually, yeah, we told her, we granted her permission, and if we hadn't sought permission and she didn't show us support, we wouldn't have used it. Utter BS, quite frankly. I'm sorry. Do you want to know my personal opinion? I think they misled her. I think they absolutely pulled the wool over her eyes and didn't specify what name they were going to name their daughter. I think that the Queen assumed Elizabeth and therefore was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine, absolutely fine. But no, they meant Lilibet, a very, very private nickname, or, I'll say the word again, Monica. And if palace sources are saying that she was angrier than I've ever seen her, that pretty much gives you an indication that she didn't lend her support. But of course, Harry and Meghan, being Harry and Meghan, they doubled down and made sure that yes, she did support us. We wouldn't have said it otherwise. We wouldn't have done it otherwise. And then kind of distribute all these legal threats. Now, will those legal threats pop up once again? Who knows? But it's going to be very interesting, isn't it? Now, playing devil's advocate, a lot of people, not the people that I associate with, but a lot of people would say, oh, well, they don't own the name. She didn't own the name Lilibet. Yeah, but it's about respect, isn't it? It's absolute respect. And it was, if they didn't receive the nod from her late Majesty that they could use her very private nickname, it's a bit of a dick move, isn't it? In fact, reports are coming out that the Queen was allegedly outraged. And quite frankly, in English terms, that means extremely mad because we are quite reserved. Another one of my theories is that they named their daughter Lilibet because they couldn't actually use the Sussex royal name. Remember that was taken away from them? That must have made them really, really mad. How else can we attach ourselves to the royal family? I know, I'll name our daughter after Queen Elizabeth, but not just Elizabeth. Let's use her very private nickname. Now, at the time, I thought it was incredibly poor taste to name their child this, but each their own. You know, Lilibet doesn't belong to anybody, it's just a name. But as I've said before, it's about respect. And then it turns out, if this book is correct, as we're led to believe, that the Queen was quite rightly outraged, that they tried to completely pull the wool over our eyes. They said, yeah, we did sought permission, but it turns out, even if they did seek permission, she was still angry about it. I mean, what on earth is that poor child going to feel like when she's grown up and reads about what happened, if this is allegedly true? I can't wait until those two children grow up and start their nepotistic life, because let's face it, they will be Nepo babies, won't they? And it will be under the reign of their uncle, Prince William, because when they grow up, Charles will be gone and William will be king. I really hope I'm alive to see that day. I really, really do. But with regards to Harry and Meghan naming their daughter after the late Queen and not actually informing her, I think to me that was the final betrayal. So I would love to know your thoughts on this. Do you think that the Queen's permission was sought and granted and this is just all a load of boo-ha? Or do you think that Harry and Meghan pulled the wool over the Queen's eyes and deceived her? And when they sought permission, that she thought it was going to be her actual name, Elizabeth, and not her nickname, Lilibet? And do you really believe that the Queen was angry about this? As always, I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell and also that like button. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of my followers for all the tips and all the emails, DMs that everybody sends to me. It really is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for watching once again.